Do you have some commentary on attack on Kyiv and other Ukrainian city yesterday or today night, and maybe some reaction because it was very big attack? And yesterday, Ministry for Defense of Russia, they published the list of drone producer and other military enterprises on the territory of EU, which allegedly supply some equipment for Ukraine. And it was ambiguous message like EU citizens should be careful and should know where this location of these enterprises. Do you consider it like a direct threat to attack this drone producer on the territory of EU? Thank you.
This shows once more that Russia is not at all interested in peace. Russia's armed forces deliberately carried out these strikes on Ukrainian emergency system, terrorizing the civilians as it knows best. So our thoughts are with the wounded and their families, and we're supporting throughout Ukraine to withstand and go through this war of terror. On our side, what we will do is also what we have done so far with further engagement, and we will step up all our efforts to support Ukraine, be it with the sanctions, be it with the financial aid, and through our defense.
On the drones.
On the drones. Here again, let's start with the basics. The basics are the following. Russia is an aggressor state with criminal behaviors, and this is shown not only in Russia, where Putin has basically massacred the whole opposition, not only in Ukraine, but throughout the world. So what is in their playbook? It's repressing, killing, threatening, creating destruction. This is what they're trying to do now. So from our side, we will not dignify these comments with any detail in this regard, but we will point to what are we doing, and we are supporting Ukraine. We are scaling up our own defense, and actually what Putin and Russia should do better is first engage in peace with real intention, and also should look at their own crippling economy instead of waging their war of terror. Because what we have seen in the first quarter of this year is that the Russian budget deficit almost doubled from the same quarter last year, and is more than the entire planned deficit for 2026 as the war in Ukraine squeezes its public finances. Also, Russia has lost and is continuously suffering extreme losses, with estimated total casualties exceeding 1.2 million. So again, it is about time for Russia to stop its war of terror and aggression. On our side, we will continue our work for peace with Ukraine and for Ukraine.
Thank you, Anita. Other questions to Anita? Jorge.
Hello, Paula. Maybe it's more for you. Yesterday, Scott Bessent, the U.S. Secretary of Treasury, announced that the administration will not renew the sanctions waiver on Russian oil. We remember that the Commission harshly criticized this decision of sanctions relief, calling it counterproductive and self-defeating. What do you have to say about this announcement now, and do you see now a chance to finally unblock the 20th package of sanctions, especially after Viktor Orban's defeat? Thank you.
Thank you, Jorge. Well, it's the U.S. decision on how to proceed. Now, what we also knew from this U.S. measure is that it was meant to be temporary, and it was meant only to cover the cargoes which had left with Russian oil before the war. So, in any case, we believe that, in general, giving any relief in terms of sanctions at this point in time vis-à-vis Russia is not helpful in maintaining the pressure on Russia. And as we also said already before, it should be ironic that Russia is actually benefiting from this war in the Middle East. But ironic as it is the reality. Now, in relation to our own package of sanctions, you know it stays on the table, and we hope to make progress there in light of the same logic that we've had so far over the past 19 packages of sanctions, and the idea really is to reduce any possibility of Russia to continuing to benefit from its action in continuing this war, terrible war, where attacks do not stop, as we've just been reminded, against Ukraine. You have a follow-up?
Yes, the main element of the sanctions of package is the full ban on the maritime services for Russian tankers. Member states were more keen to wait for a G7 agreement before moving on with this proposal, but obviously this G7 agreement is a hypothetical. Do you think it makes sense to wait for an agreement that might never come, or do you think the European Union should move ahead on its own with this full ban once the sanctions package is approved? Thank you.
Thank you, Jorge. As we also said a number of times, of course, if we put forward a package of sanctions, if we also have the support at international level by the G7, the better and greater the impact will be. So we always try to also align our efforts with the G7. On this one, we continue discussions in this sense. This would be the ideal outcome. If it is not possible, we'll see how to proceed. Other questions? Still to Anita. Mose.
Yes, it's a follow-up to the previous question about the possibility of sanctions decisions taken by, let's say, the Foreign Affairs Council, which is expected to meet, I think, next week. But can the Commission already now, let's say, see any change in Hungary's position about sanctions, both against Russia and also against Israel, as long as the Orban government is still in power, I suppose, until May? Thank you.
Thank you. Anita, do we have any update on the agenda of next week's Foreign Affairs Council, and can we confirm?
Indeed, we're confirming, obviously, the Foreign Affairs Council that will take place next week in Luxembourg, and as always, the discussions on Ukraine will be on the top of the agenda, where also the work should continue on the sanctions. As per usual, because this is where our focus and the High Representative focus is. Now, obviously, we'll not speculate on the member states and also on Hungary's position, but of course we, as always, hope for the best and work towards achieving this goal.
We did it 19 times before. We hoped and are confident that we'll do it another time with unanimity. Good. Other questions on foreign affairs? One in the back there. Go ahead.
Hi, I'm Angelia Stojkovic, Fonet News Agency from Serbia. My question is about this talking that Serbia might lose financing from a growth plan. So when we may know if such initiative will be initiated, what are next steps, and what would Serbia have to do to avoid suspensions on financing?
The segue into an enlargement-related topic with Guillaume.
The question is
in the back.
Hi. So regarding questions, what I can say is that the Commission is always assessing whether the relevant conditions for support under the different financial instruments that we have are met. And this is part of the normal implementation that we have of all these instruments, one of them being indeed the growth plan. So we checked this process throughout the different requests for payments and for each request for payment. Regarding the situation in Serbia, we have said we are very concerned by the recent adoption of the judicial legislation in Serbia, and we are following the next steps very closely. So we continue to support Serbia on its EU path, but at the same time, we really expect from the authorities to uphold and respect effective democratic mechanism, the rule of law, and human rights. This includes through the alignment of the judicial law with the EU standards and through a swift implementation of the Venice Commission opinion recommendation expected in the coming weeks. And we also expect the reversal of the backsliding in the area of media freedom.
Good. Other questions to Guillaume, please?
Thank you so much, Andrea Nemet, Hungary, Here Television. According to the EU Commissioner for Enlargement, the new government of Hungary could accelerate Ukraine's accession to the EU. What is the basis for this claim? Péter Magyar has previously stated that he does not support Ukraine's accelerated accession. He would even put it to a referendum, and that he prefers to support the accession of Western Balkan countries on the basis of merit. These principles are, however, very similar to Viktor Orban's previous view, actually. So what is your opinion on this, please? Thank you.
Well, on this, let me take it. We, as many of you have already reported, there will be a first meeting of a delegation of colleagues of the Commission going to Budapest tomorrow, where discussions will start with the upcoming government of Hungary. This is also a direct manifestation of President von der Leyen's announcement earlier this week that we would start working with the new government as soon as possible on the various topics, and there will be plenty of opportunity to discuss what are the positions of the new government and take it from there. And I see other Hungarian representatives of the media. Yes, Sander.
Thank you. It's a follow-up question on this delegation, because it's in a way very unusual that the Commission sends a delegation right after the elections to talk to, I think so far they are party officials and not government officials of Hungary. So what is the scope of the delegation and what is the focus? Because I imagine one part could be also the facilitation of withdrawal of European funds later when this government comes into power. And who are the members of this delegation from the side of the European Commission?
As we said before, and you asked us a number of questions already on Tuesday regarding what are possible next steps with the future government of Hungary. And one of the very clear conclusions here was that the clock is ticking for a number of topics, whether we're talking about the Ukrainian loan, whether we're talking about next generation EU funds. So obviously it is in the interest of Hungary, it is in the interest of the EU that we make progress as soon as possible, and therefore these are preliminary talks that are taking place in order to make sure that once the government is in place, really action can be taken if appropriate, and that we do not waste any time. So that's the idea, that's the framing of this meeting and the reason for it to take place really without wasting any further time. Roland.
Thank you very much, Roland Pap with Nipsava. So just a clarification, the topics include only the frozen funds, the frozen EU funds, or is there anything else discussed? I don't know, energy policy, because also there the government, well, the election manifesto of the TISA party, and since then Prime Minister-elect Péter Magyar already said that he doesn't want to phase out Russian energy immediately, so that might be also a topic which can be covered, or what else will be on the agenda, and who is going again from the Commission side?
So there's no exhaustive list of topics. As said, there's a lot, there's a big menu from which to choose from, and these are, as said, first talks. Not sure we'll be able to cover everything. It's preliminary. It's to start the discussions to see how we can make progress as much as possible. As to the delegation, I will not go into the details of the delegation now. We'll see what can be then shared with you once these meetings have taken place. So we hope to be back to it at the latest next Monday. Other questions? Yes, please.
Valeria Pashko, Public Broadcaster of Ukraine. So it's on 90 billion loan for Ukraine. Before, Petr Magyar stated that he wants Ukraine to restore the Druzhba pipeline, and after that he will unblock the loan for Ukraine. But before, from this podium, you said that it's unacceptable to tie these two things because the loan was agreed already at the EU Council. So how will you deal with this now? It seems that the position of the Prime Minister to be is almost the same things.
Listen, our position on the Ukrainian loan has not changed. It's a fact. There was an agreement at leaders level last December at the European Council, subject to some conditions which have been met, to endorse this loan. So there's no change there from our side. What changed is President Zelensky's announcement 2 days ago that Druzhba should be operational by the end of April. So that's good news, and we will take it from here. Other questions to Guillaume, since we have him with us? No, we changed the subject. Go ahead, Eddie. Yes, you.
Question about Brexit. So I think it might be Olaf, or it might be you.
Is that still a topic?
Apparently so. Apparently so.
I thought we were over that.
Well, I think you've got the UK-EU conference happening today, and there have been a number of signals from London in recent weeks that Britain is interested in pursuing a different relationship with the EU than the one it had previously agreed. Given the Commission's been flying around the world signing partnerships with a handful of other countries, do you think there is appetite in Brussels for any kind of reset? Are we just all really bored of Brexit and we don't want to reopen things that have been put to bed? And is there an offer that could be negotiated with the British government?
So it's not about Brexit, actually. Listen, let's see if Balázs has something to tell us. Just for the framing, you know that there is a summit coming up, the annual summit between the EU and the UK. I don't think we have a final date yet. But what is clear, of course, a lot of work is taking place in preparation of that summit. We're reading a lot also in the press, and notably in the British press, about positioning by the UK. A lot of work is going by the colleagues and the teams on both sides into preparing the summit. There's not much that we can prejudge there, but Balázs, if we have any elements that can be shared already at this stage, go ahead.
Indeed, and I've taken over the file from Olaf, so you will have to put up with me on this file as well from now on. So indeed, we had a very successful summit back in 2025, and then we launched negotiations on a number of areas. These include a common sanitary and phytosanitary area, so negotiations are ongoing on this front. We are also talking about linking our respective emission trading schemes, and we are also looking at the subject matter of youth mobility. So this is where we are working very hard together with the UK. It was also agreed that we would explore the possibility of an electricity agreement, and we were given recently a green light by the Council to start talking with our UK counterparts on that front as well. So we are trying to make as much progress as we can in view of the upcoming summit, for which, to my knowledge, there is no date yet, but the negotiating teams are working very hard, and a part of the negotiations is the topic of dynamic alignment as well, for example. So, sorry? Okay.
On this, because you just mentioned it, yes, we read reports about possible intentions on the UK side. We will see what and to what extent this is formally also put forward for discussions, and we'll again take it from there.
Voilà.
Yes, Gamra, follow up.
Just a quick follow-up as to whether you think there's sufficient scope in terms of what's been agreed with the Council and the level of appetite from Member States to pursue a bit of a broader programme of, looking for opportunities to have closer alignment, because many of the things you've mentioned, as important as phytosanitary stuff is, quite secondary to the fact that the EU and UK economies could be doing a lot better. Do you think there's appetite for more integration? Do you think you have the scope? Do you think you have the mandate to present broader options?
Listen, Gabriel, that's what's been explored, right? And you've seen, indeed, last year a lot of progress was done. And we do absolutely see the benefits of a closer cooperation with the UK. Many, many shared interests, and we've seen them also with the latest developments around the world, how important it can be to really have a closer cooperation between the EU and the UK. Then the devil lies in the details, as we all know, and as said, a lot of work is going on both sides into preparing the upcoming summit, and we'll see how much progress we'll be able to do in that sense. Other questions? Oui, voilà. Derrière.
Yes, thank you, Olivier Beauvais, AFP. I just wanted to know if you could give us a date for the next summit.
No. Voilà, I confirm with Balázs that indeed we don't have a final date yet. Let me see if, yes.
Thank you, Rafael Zwalen, Swiss News Agency. In the agreement you are negotiating, you said before it's about dynamic alignment, but as I understand, it's also about payment and for cohesion and dispute of how to resolve disputes. Would you say it's the same institutional elements as with the agreement you reached with Switzerland? Thank you.
Listen, I won't go into what are the individual elements of discussion as we go, and I would also not draw parallels between our discussions with the United Kingdom and Switzerland. But Olaf, you're also, Balázs, you're also.
I think this file is really not meant for me, since that's exactly.
You're responsible for both.
Yeah, that's exactly what I want to say. So there are no two identical cases, so we will not be drawing parallels between two partners.
And let's see if we have anything here. No, otherwise, yes, you also for Balázs.
Yes, Valeria Pashko, Public Broadcaster of Ukraine. So Commissioner Dombrovskis is in the US now, and some media reports suggest that he will urge partners to speed up the payments to Ukraine under the air loans. Can you please confirm that? And also, is it correct that these payments are delayed now? And how much money does we have left in these funds? Thanks.
Indeed, you raise a very important point. So under the ERA loan, or what we call colloquially the G7 loan, we are talking about an overall capacity of 45 billion euro, of which, according to the latest information I have, 38 million have been disbursed to Ukraine by the G7 partners, just over 38 billion. Part of this is our commitment, our contribution, 18 billion, that was entirely dispersed, so we've done our part. And of course, it is important for us to ensure that Ukraine gets the remaining amount of funds as soon as possible. And of course, we are encouraging all G7 partners to follow suit.
Other questions to Balázs? No, that was it for today, Balázs. Good, Jan.
Ciao, Papiscelli, Bloomberg News. I have a question about Anthropic's mythos and what came out of the great engagement exercise between Anthropic and the AI office of the Commission itself. I think there was a meeting a couple of days ago. What can we know about what went down there?
Hi, Jan. Not much. So I can confirm definitely that the meeting took place with Anthropic. I will not disclose further detail on these ongoing discussions. Here again, we have a new AI model that is being released. It comes with a certain number of risks. We need information when it comes to these risks. For this, we're reaching out to the platform, to Anthropic. We have received certain information, and there will be other follow-up meetings.
Jan, you would like to know more?
Yeah. Does the Commission, regardless of the meeting, does the Commission seek access to Mythos?
The Commission is currently not one of the 40 unnamed organizations that have access.
You want it?
We currently don't have access.
It's for others to translate. Good. So that is clear. Other questions to Thomas? Yes, Maria.
Hello, Maria Psara with FC Newspaper Greece. I would like, first of all, to know what if you can say about the VTC of President Macron today at 5 o'clock. Since the President will participate, I would like to know if the only thing that will present is the age verification app. This is one question. And the second question is, what are the expectations of the Commission from this meeting? I mean, there are several meetings happening today, all this week, all this time, for the access of the minors in the social media and internet. What's the expectations and how this could work complementary with the initiatives of the EU? Thank you.
You said whether from our side the participation at the VTC organized by President Macron is only about presenting our age verification app. I would certainly not underestimate the importance of this verification age verification app for the overall discussion. As you know, several member states, we have really now a big number of member states, but also abroad, who are discussing the possibility of introducing a social media ban for children or youngsters under a certain age. For that to happen, you need the tool. And this is what the President presented yesterday, so I would consider it a major contribution to any discussion on the subject today. And it is very complementary indeed, because for a while we've been working on this solution, which will basically allow the member states to have the tool which will enable the verification. And the benefit is if we have a tool which is common across the EU. And then we have the benefits of one single tool. But Thomas, anything else to add?
You said it all, Paula. You said it all. Yes. Yes.
Maria, a follow-up.
Thanks for the answer. Since there are many initiatives from different member states on the ban, as you said, Paula, is there any sense of urgency when it comes to the group of experts that the President has already gathered? And if I'm not wrong, today is the second meeting, and the report is expected till summer. So is there any thoughts to bring it sooner, this report? And another question, I think, for Thomas as well, is if Greece has notified to the Commission the announcement for the ban of the minors under 15 to the social media. Thank you again.
Thank you, Maria. Also there, I would say that if you bear in mind that the President von der Leyen raised the issue, the importance of online safety for children last year in the autumn, notably at her State of the Union address. And very, very quickly, work started in this area on this topic. One aspect of this work was precisely to put together the experts that can best advise on how to proceed. So if we look back, this means that it's been a few months that we're working on the topic and that we are hearing the experts, that we've been listening to the stakeholders, to parents, to experts in the field, and we do not want to precipitate things either. So this, I would say, is pretty fast. You mentioned it's indeed the second meeting of the panel today. We are aiming to have another one by the summer, which should come up with concrete suggestions, and we will then work on this basis. And I'd say, indeed, if we conclude the circle still this year, it's extremely fast. Thomas.
On the second question, no, I'm not aware of any notification from Greece. We have received one from France very recently. Now, let me just separate the two tracks very briefly, as Paula just said. So one track is we have seen all the member states coming up, several member states, a lot of member states coming up with national initiatives with age restrictions. That's one track. They will need a solution to that. And I think the President yesterday and Executive Vice President were very clear. The solution to that has to be a European one, because we will not allow for fragmentation of our market. That's where you have the EU age verification app. Now, will we do something beyond that solution to be fully complementary with our member states? That depends on the recommendations of the panel. So these are two completely separate tracks. But the solution is already here. It's on the table. It's privacy preserving. It's very easy to use, and and it's open source on top of it.
Good. Other questions for Thomas? No. Then we move on. In the back there. Yes, you. Next to Mose, or before Mose? Sorry, I forgot your name.
Thank you. Petr Obrovský with the Czech television. I've got a question on the recent proposal by the Czech government to change the financing of public service media in the Czech Republic. It proposes to abolish public service media fee and subject the media to the state budget and slash the funds by approximately 15% in a very short time frame. So I wanted to ask whether the Commission intends to assess whether it's complementary with the European Media Freedom Act, which demands the governments to ensure that the finances for public service media are adequate, predictable and stable. Thank you.
Peter, thank you very much. Thank you very much for the question. So we are aware of the announcements made by the Czech government. I am under the impression that this is a draft that is still at the very draft stage. That means it's not even a final government proposal yet. So all I can say at this stage is that we will follow the developments closely. Maybe a couple of words on media freedom more in general. Now, you know, strengthening free and independent media, including the role of public service media, is crucial for our democracies. This is, by the way, part also of the European Democracy Shield. You know that. We've presented this recently. Public service media play a special role in ensuring that citizens have access to information and that this is a diverse access, diverse content offering. And the European Media Freedom Act, the EMFA, contains a number of safeguards to ensure media freedom and pluralism in the EU, including in relation to independent functioning of public media. We are in close contact with all member states on the implementation of the EMFA, which entered fully into force in summer last year, including Czechia. And we are monitoring relevant developments also in the framework of our rule of law report. But as regards this specific case, this is a very early draft. I have no comment at this stage.
Thank you. Yes.
Hi, Teresa Supová from Czech News Agency, Czech Republic. I have a small follow-up. The winner of the Hungarian elections, Péter Magyar, is currently seeking to suspend news broadcasts of Hungarian public service media until they become independent. It's precisely in Hungary that we can see how the influence of the government over the media can become and how easily it is to control the media. And while Magyar is now aiming to dismantle the system, according to critics, the Czech Republic is doing the opposite. So what do you think about these tendencies?
Yes.
Well, what we can say on the Hungarian case is maybe also that we know it's something that we've said earlier this week. We cannot now comment on specific comments that have been made on what may be done and what may not be done. But what's important for us in all the cases is that there is independent functioning of public service media. So this is what the Commission stands for. This is what we're working on in the framework of the EMFA. And let me remind you that as regards Hungary, there was currently an infringement procedure ongoing regarding the implementation of EMFA. So this is what's happening with the current system in Hungary.
EMFA,
European Media Freedom Act.
Thank you, Marcos, so that it's clear for all our audience. Mose.
Related question, not about the Czech Republic, but about other member states where there's a problem with media pluralism or freedom of media. And I suppose in that case, it is a responsibility, I suppose, the member state to do something about it, and let's say, and ensure media pluralism and freedom of media. But how do you then explain that last year there was a call for proposals when the Commission allocated millions in grant to Euronews, I think, in order for 2 projects in Poland and in Hungary because of the lack of media pluralism?
Moser, can you just repeat the question, because it was difficult to understand here acoustically.
Was, I mean, what is the reason the Commission is, let's say, allocating grants to media outlets in order to strengthen media pluralism in specific member states? Because I assume that that is the responsibility of those countries themselves. Thank you.
This is about financing of independent media, and supporting independent media structures. Yes, that's something that we also address under the European Democracy Shield, by the way. That's a very important strand in our point of view to support civil society, to support free media. So we do that, and very much so. Thomas can give you more details on the financing, but I think if needed. But I have more questions.
Yes, so you don't go far away. Marcus, very briefly.
Yes, very briefly, Mose, because I got your question. Obviously, we have published a daily news today where we announced the opening of a call to support, of course, pan-European media actions in Europe with 16 million that are now on the table. And, of course, all eligible entities can now participate and apply to the call. So important to recall, it's in our daily news.
There you go. Thank you for the compliment. Marcus, you're back. Because we are not yet, we haven't exhausted the questions to you yet. So, Maria.
Hello again, Marcus. Maria Psara with FC Newspaper. I would like to know if now you know something more about the BBC report on the Greek police using masked migrants to forcibly push back other migrants. I'm wondering if the Commission has any reaction on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Maria. Coming back to these questions, we've briefly exchanged already 2 days ago. What I can say today is that we are aware of media reporting on this matter. It is the responsibility of member states to investigate any allegations by establishing the facts and also to ensure adequate follow-up on any identified wrongdoings. It's not for the Commission to identify, and we have no additional information on this specific case. What I can say in general on the position of the Commission is the following. Member States have to manage and protect the external borders. This is part of what they have to do. They have to do it within the EU's legal framework. Their task is supported by Frontex and through our financial instruments. And efficient border management must be firmly rooted in the respect of fundamental rights, always.
There you go. Good. And Maria, you have a follow-up?
Yes, thank you, Marcus, for the answer. I would like you to confirm if pushbacks are not in the legal framework of the EU, first of all, and secondly, do you consider that this report, this story by BBC, is an attack to the Greek government, and some Greek media are claiming? Thank you
very much for the question. To your first question, when it comes to fundamental rights, the principle of non-refoulement must be respected always. I think that's very clear. On your second question, I am not in the position to comment on media reports regarding this specific case any further.
Thank you. Other questions to Marcus? No? Other questions today? Noureddin.
Deux questions pour Anwar, si tu veux bien. La première, c'est sur la Palestine. Au cours de ces 2 derniers jours, plus que 350 diplomates, anciens diplomates plutôt, et hauts fonctionnaires européens demandent la suspension partielle ou totale de l'accord d'association avec Israël. Plus que 60 NGO, organisations non gouvernementales européennes, demandent la même chose. Je suppose que la Commission a peut-être reçu la pétition signée par plus que 1 million de citoyens européens.
toutes ces initiatives ont se basent sur ces violations continues de la part d'Israël du droit international, du droit humanitaire, que ce soit à Gaza, en Cisjordanie, au Liban, ce même droit international qui fait partie des valeurs principales, des principes principaux dans les traités européens. Je voudrais demander à Anwar si il y a un mouvement, il y a un débat qui s'oriente vers des mesures partielles ou totales en rapport avec la coordination avec Israël. Ma deuxième question est sur le détroit d'Hormuz. La présidente a reçu aujourd'hui le secrétaire général du Conseil de coopération du Golfe. Est-ce qu'on peut savoir ce qu'ils ont discuté ou si l'attitude que la présidente a exprimée pendant cette réunion? Deuxièmement, est-ce que l'Union européenne va participer dans ce sommet sponsorisé ou organisé par la France et l'Angleterre et la Grande-Bretagne sur le détroit d'Hormuz demain? Quelle pourrait être la contribution de l'Union européenne dans cette réunion de demain? Merci.
Merci. I start with your second or third questions, Noureddin. So I'd like to recall here what the President has been saying on the closure of the Strait of Hormuz, and she said very clearly, as recently as Monday, that the ongoing closure is greatly damaging, and the restoration of the freedom of navigation is of paramount importance to us. On the President's agenda, we have no update to share with you at this stage on top of what I shared at the very beginning of this midday. And regarding the meeting with the Secretary General of the Gulf Cooperation Council this morning, you may have seen that the President posted about this meeting, extending notably our full solidarity with the Gulf Cooperation Council and its members as they are facing unprovoked attacks from Iran. And this is a clear demonstration that Iran should never have nuclear weapons. The President also made it clear that the current times do call for a closer partnership between Europe and the Gulf countries. And as you know, today was not the first time in recent weeks where the President was in touch with the Gulf countries or its representatives. Very early already in March, after the beginning of the conflict in the Middle East, there was also a call with Gulf countries and other countries in the region. And clearly we see the need for a closer partnership between Europe and the Gulf countries, and the upcoming EU-GCC summit, which will take place later this year, offers a very good opportunity precisely to further strengthen our relations in the context and beyond what we are seeing now in the Middle East. On the first question, Anwar.
Yes, indeed. Je pense que ta question est en français, donc je répondrai en français. Sur le premier point, s'agissant d'Israël et de la Palestine, et ensuite je compléterai sur le Golfe. Donc l'état des lieux est toujours inchangé dans la mesure où les mesures qui ont été annoncées par la présidente de la Commission européenne lors du dernier État de l'Union sont toujours sur la table. Vous n'êtes pas sans savoir que la semaine prochaine, nous avons un Conseil Affaires étrangères. Et à l'ordre du jour de ce Conseil Affaires étrangères, il y a un point qui est intitulé « La situation au Moyen-Orient à la lumière des derniers développements de la guerre en Iran et de ses répercussions dans la région ». Les ministres seront donc libres d'aborder toute question qui les préoccupe. Maintenant, s'agissant toujours du dossier, mais via l'angle palestinien, puisque bien évidemment qu'il s'agit du sujet dont nous parlons. La semaine prochaine auront lieu deux événements qui sont très importants s'agissant de notre soutien à la Palestine et également dans le cadre de la solution à deux États dont nous sommes promoteurs. La haute représentante Kaja Kallas co-organisera le 20 avril prochain la 9e réunion ministérielle de l'Alliance mondiale pour la mise en œuvre de la solution à 2 États, et ce, à Bruxelles, aux côtés du ministre belge des Affaires étrangères. L'après-midi, le même jour, la haute représentante co-organisera la réunion ministérielle du comité de liaison ad hoc à Bruxelles, aux côtés du ministre norvégien, afin, encore une fois, de rappeler à quel point notre soutien à la Palestine et également l'horizon politique de la solution à 2 États est essentiel pour nous. L'Union européenne est un co-organisateur de ces mécanismes-ci qui visent à soutenir la solution à 2 États. Le comité de liaison ad hoc est un mécanisme de coordination politique pour l'aide au développement en faveur du peuple palestinien qui se réunit 2 fois par an, une fois à New York et une fois à Bruxelles. Quant à l'Alliance mondiale, c'est un forum politique qui compte plus de 100 membres et qui envoie un signal fort quant au consensus international en faveur de la solution à 2 États, et l'Union européenne continuera de s'engager très clairement dans ce format-là. Ceci est en lien et en ligne avec les conclusions du Conseil européen, c'est-à-dire adoptées au niveau des leaders, qui disaient très clairement que nous, Union européenne, nous continuerons de coopérer avec toutes les parties prenantes, internationales et régionales, afin de contribuer à la reconstruction et au redéveloppement de Gaza, conformément au droit international. Ceci en plein soutien de l'autorité palestinienne, y compris dans le cadre de ces réformes. Dans ce cadre-là, le Conseil européen avait déjà appelé et continue d'appeler Israël à libérer d'urgence les recettes fiscales et douanières retenues et à étendre les services de correspondance bancaire entre les banques israéliennes et palestiniennes. Pourquoi? Parce que ces 2 actions sont nécessaires pour assurer le bon fonctionnement de l'autorité palestinienne et la fourniture des services essentiels à la population. Et pour vous donner une vision un peu plus macro des choses, cet effort-là s'inscrit également dans la boîte à outils qui est multidimensionnelle et qui est la nôtre Union européenne et que nous mobilisons pour venir en réponse aux besoins multidimensionnels qui sont accrus en Palestine. Sur le plan donc, financier et développement, comme je l'ai annoncé, mais également sur le plan politique, avec notre soutien dans le cadre de l'Alliance globale, pour la mise en œuvre de la solution à 2 États. Et ceci vient compléter tous nos autres angles d'action, tant sur le plan humanitaire que sur le plan financier et de la reconstruction. Donc voilà, pour donner une vue d'ensemble quand il s'agit de notre soutien et de nos actions quand il s'agit de la Palestine et de la solution à 2 États. Maintenant, sur ta première question qui traitait du Golfe et du détroit d'Hormuz. Je ne reviendrai pas sur ce qui était partagé, bien évidemment, avec Paola, mais pour donner une perspective quand il s'agit d'initiatives de nos États membres et également de nos partenaires. Alors nous comprenons que le sommet de demain, co-organisé par la France et par nos partenaires britanniques, vise à renforcer les efforts collectifs afin de garantir la liberté de navigation dans les détroits d'Hormuz, et ce, dès que les conditions nécessaires seront réunies. Encore une fois, si nous regardons au niveau du Conseil européen, nos leaders s'étaient clairement exprimés en saluant de manière très explicite les initiatives annoncées par nos États membres afin de traiter de cette question qui est cruciale, non seulement pour la stabilité mondiale, mais également la prospérité. Nous saluons la coordination que nous voyons étroite entre la France et le Royaume-Uni, ainsi que la participation d'autres États membres à cet effet. Quant à nous, Union européenne, notre soutien reste inchangé vis-à-vis de ces efforts-là. Nous attendons bien évidemment avec intérêt les résultats de ce sommet afin d'orienter nos actions futures au niveau européen en termes de sécurité maritime. Et bien évidemment que la participation de nos États membres enrichira sans doute les discussions qui auront lieu à notre niveau, non seulement au niveau du Conseil Affaires étrangères, mais également au niveau des leaders, au niveau informel de la semaine prochaine, afin d'éclairer les travaux collectifs de l'Union européenne conformément à la direction de voyage que nous avons établie et que la haute représentante a établie quand il s'agit de la libération et un passage qui soit sûr dans le détroit d'Hormuz.
That was a lot of information. Thank you, Anwar. Please. In the back.
Merci Olivier Beau, AFP. Sur cette réunion de l'Alliance mondiale, tu peux nous en dire plus? Est-ce que c'est en visio? Est-ce que ce sera en présentiel? Est-ce que tu as une idée de la composition des délégations? Enfin, quelques détails, quoi.
Il s'agira de réunions qui sont en présentiel à Bruxelles et nous communiquerons très rapidement d'ici demain sur les détails qui vous sont d'intérêt, chers collègues journalistes.
Jorge.
Yes, following up on Noureddin's question, Paula, you said that you cannot provide any updates at this stage, but if I understand well, it was announced here at midday that the President will attend this video conference on Hormuz tomorrow. Has the plan changed? I mean, is she not going? I mean, she's not joining the video conference at all? Thank you.
No, to my memory, we have never confirmed the participation of the President. Maybe it was mixed up with the VTC today that President Macron is organizing on the digital age and online safety of children. That could be the source of a misunderstanding, because there are several VTCs organized by the leader of France, so that could be the source of misunderstanding. Other questions to Anwar? David, for Anwar?
Hello, thank you, Paula. David Price, Your Democracy. The major users of the Gulf of Hormuz and the use of from energy are China and India. And can you update us on contacts which should be made with the EU and coordinating with these interest nations to have the Gulf of Hormuz opened?
Thank you. I failed to comprehend the core of your question, but in terms of diplomatic engagement, obviously we remain in close touch and engagement with all our partners in the region and also worldwide, and the High Representative's extensive and active diplomatic contacts is also testament and a proof in that regard. Then in terms of energy, in terms of the picture that we have, in terms of the latest, I think that Anna Kaisa has already been providing all the necessary information that we have at our disposal.
Other questions today? No? Yes? Gabriel?
Sorry, it was just a final one, and I think it pertains to the President's agenda. You previously said from this podium that the President intends to question Prime Minister Orban about what appears to be some really serious breaches of EU cooperation and his contacts with Moscow. He's now reportedly not attending the informal European Council summit next week. Does the President intend to speak to Prime Minister Orban about these allegations, or are you going to let sleeping dogs lie?
Gabriel, indeed, the President mentioned as recently as last week that she wanted to raise the issue with leaders. She didn't specify Prime Minister Orban explicitly. She said that this was a matter of concern, of serious concern, and therefore she wanted to flag it with leaders. She didn't specify which leaders. I have no update there, and whether this will indeed be something that could be flagged also next week. Final question here.
Thanks a lot, Alena Marmovich, Radio Free Europe. Sorry, I should have asked it earlier, but on President's agenda as well, she's meeting today with the NATO Secretary General. Are you aware if the question of those Russian threats to target European factories is going to be discussed? Thank you.
Really not aware of this. If this is going to be brought up, I wouldn't exclude, but both the Secretary General and the President will have the opportunity in their meeting to indeed to discuss issues that are topical. Now I cannot confirm nor deny that this will be also part of their discussions.